Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Neal Howard, here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you so much for joining us again. Our guest is Mr. Michael Hough. He's Executive Vice President of Advance Medical, and he's joining us here today on Health Professional Radio to talk about Advance Medical, tell us the story of the company, and how they're using digital technology in brand new ways, specifically to aid healthcare benefits and services that companies can offer to their employees. Welcome, Mr. Michael Hough.
Hi, Neal. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Now, as EVP of Advance Medical, let's talk about this company. How long has Advance been around?
Great. I'll walk you through the beginning. So the company was founded in 1999. If you remember, way back then, the promise of Internet was that we could move information virtually anywhere with very little cost. And in finding Advance Medical, the idea was the information can move from place to place without the patient actually having to. We quickly adopted a model where we could move information about a patient from a worldwide expert throughout to wherever they may be. But we wound up understanding very, very quickly that it was the interactions on the phone that made the experience for the patient work. So in light of that, we hired a team of physicians. So today, Advance Medical is really an organization of doctors. And it's not just getting the right information to patients from reading credible sources, but helping them understand what it means to them and how to implement any change in treatment or different paths that they need to be following. Because at the end of the day, all the best information in the world is only as useful as it could be implemented. And so where we are, go ahead.
Well, I've heard of similar concepts. Are we talking physician's assistants and over the phone nurse care, or through an app with nurses and PAs?
So very different from that. We are the core of our business is in helping people with typically pretty complex disease get information from world-leading experts. The delivery model is that people are speaking directly to a doctor on the Advanced Medical team, and for us to understand exactly what is going on in their care, what their objectives are, for their health/life. And then in gathering the medical records, sending it to leading experts, having those experts write an opinion, and sending it, returning that information back to the patient, and then having the doctor walk through what all of the information contained in the expert opinions means for their care and how to implement it. So a little bit different from telemedicine applications, which are pretty widespread at this point, where people are talking to a doctor who's going to diagnose them and write them prescriptions. We're actually, which is a very important service that's aimed at keeping people out of the emergency rooms, and certainly a convenience factor. Our aim is a little bit towards the more tougher cases. So people who are contemplating, extensive surgeries, who have, very, very serious or complex disease, where it takes a little bit of effort to really understand what's going on, and then seeking out those physicians that have narrowed their research and patient panel to certain aspects of disease. So a community oncologist sees a lot of everything, somebody has a rhabdomyosarcoma, you want an expert who's seen that before. And then again, what do you do with that? After an expert has reviewed what's going on clinically, what do you do with that information to make sure that that if there's some changes that are needed to be done in the care plan, that they can be adopted?
Is this a complete management tool as far as each individual case that a physician may have? And is there collaboration between physicians in order to give that expert opinion to the patient?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question because it's something that's not well understood by lay people. That medicine is collaborative. The way that doctors train, they learn from each other. They learn in clinical rounds, and so having other physicians opine on what is going on in a patient's care is actually welcomed. So our objective is we know that doctors are stretched very thin and want to do the absolute best job that they can for their patients. This is a way to deliver information that from well-respected sources that the treating physician is typically a specialist would have heard of these opining experts because they're head of societies and have important roles in academic medicine and doing a lot of thinking. To get information from one of those experts to be able to apply it to a patient is actually a win-win. The doctor gets to provide additional information, additional treatment recommendations that they may not have considered because they see a breadth of everything. And sort of in our service delivery, what we focused on is now you have this information being passed by a patient to a treating physician probably won't get the attention that deserves. But when a doctor is calling another doctor and saying, hey, listen, we have this information about your patient that you may be interested in what expert A and expert B have to say about what's going on in their care. They're very receptive to that, and it allows the local treating physician to be able to offer typically the same level of service and high level of care as somebody would at a big academic center. And so we're empowering that treating physician to be a better doctor, and it's applied to the patient that we're working with, but it applies to their entire patient panel. So to learn something that could be applied across. So your question, I believe, was about whether or not
there was collaboration.
We weren't. Yeah, there was collaboration, and it's certainly a major part of what we do. Fundamentally, we think doctors are good. We think doctors are trying to do the best job they possibly can.
Of course.
But unfortunately, they're limited in time they can spend with patients, and I think that limits their ability to know to be subject matter experts in absolutely everything, and that's what we're trying to assist with. I think that telemedicine in general is threatening to disintermediate some parts of the healthcare system, and when patients have relationships with a video doctor, they don't have a complete experience, and I think that's a problem. What we're trying to do is be a partner with all the physicians involved with some of those care, and because we're not moving the patient, we're not diagnosing or providing treatment. It can stay within the same ecosystem, and no part of the delivery of this cuts anybody out. And I think that's really important because I think that the physicians are feeling the pressure from video doctors who are really cutting into their patients aren't going to their showing up to their trained physician as much because they're getting the services that they need via the web, and we're trying to go the other way and empower those doctors as opposed to cut them out.
And it also fosters a higher level of confidence online with patients, which is always a plus.
Always a plus.
Now, in wrapping up, Mike, how are the experts determined? Who decides who's an expert and who's going to be a part of this, as of millions of physicians out there?
Great question. So we have a clinical committee made up of medical directors that for each individual case, we take a look at the patient's clinical scenario and their questions, and we are able to say, based on this, who's writing in this area, who's doing the most publishing, the most research, has grants, and those tend to be the in that particular area of disease. And then those doctors have no formal relationship with Advance Medical, but we reach out to them, and almost all of the time they're very happy to be involved with improving a patient's care for somebody who they'll never see in their own clinic. So they're determined by the quality of and their prominence in their field, quality of the work and the prominence of the field, and then are easy and really happy to be engaged because to become a doctor you're in this game to help people.
Absolutely.
And it's just another mechanism to do that.
Now, where can we go online and get some more information about Advance Medical?
www.advance-medical.net. No D at the end of the things.
Michael Hough, EVP of Advance Medical. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, listen in, and download it at SoundCloud. And be sure to visit our affiliates page when you visit our platform at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au.